47 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. We're moving on to the Texas State Bobcats. This team last year this was an interesting team last year, in my opinion, because at moments to me, it felt like this team was starting to get their stuff together. And it never really turned out that way. This was quite a disappointing team here in 2022. However, when you take a look at this Texas State team in 2022, this is the team that made some improvements through the portal, added some nice pieces, and the team that we could see improve this upcoming season. So can Texas State find a way to push themselves into a bowl game this upcoming year? Or will 2022 be a year where Texas State maybe takes a step back from where they've been in previous years? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite teams. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And for fans of the Texas State Bobcats out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot better than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, anything of the sort, leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to hear what you guys have to say. So let's talk about Texas State in 2022, my 12th ranked team in the Sun Belt Conference coming into the 2022 college football season. Now, this is a Texas State team that was 4-8 a year ago. They were 3-5 in conference play. And again, overall, I felt like at points, this team was okay, right? I feel like at points, this was an okay team. And it was the team that, I'll just leave it at that, right? This is the team that had their moments last year, but overall was not a very good team. Statistically, on offense, 342 yards per game with around 23 points per game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, 430 yards per game with around 33 points per game. So this is definitely a Texas State team that you'd like to see make some improvements this year in 2022. Now, a quick little note about Texas State, about the coaching staff. To my knowledge, I could not find a true play caller for this team. To my knowledge, it's more like a by committee system. At least that's what I saw on the staff or on the coaches directory on the Texas State website. So for Texas State fans out there, if there is a true play caller, leave them in the comment section down below. I'd be happy to hear what you guys have to say regarding that matter. But in terms of players leaving this team, you lose a couple quarterbacks off of this roster. Brady McBride and Tyler Vitt, two quarterbacks that are gone off this roster, and they were the only two quarterbacks. They were the only two quarterbacks who attempted a pass last season for this team. And I say quarterbacks attempted the pass. There was a linebacker that threw a pass that is coming back. We'll talk about that later. But quarterbacks leaving: Brady McBride, 1,507 yards, 12 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and Tyler Vitt, who was also the fourth leading rusher on this team at 801 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So you lose both of those guys' productions out of the quarterback room, and you're going to need to find someone else to come in and replace him. Running back Brock Sturgis is leaving, had 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then Travis Graham gone as well. Travis TJ Graham, however you want to say, gone. 298 yards and 3 touchdowns. Both of those guys were the third leading options at their respective positions statistically a season ago. Also, you lose a tight end in Seth Caillou. Taking a look at the defensive side of the ball, you lose a couple defensive linemen. Kavian Patterson had 51 tackles, a sack and a half, recovered 2 fumbles a season ago. And then Nicholas McMahon, 2.5 sacks a season ago, and recovered 1 fumble. When you take a look at the linebacker group, you lose your leading tackler, Markavian Coleman, had 81 tackles a season ago and forced 2 fumbles, as well as Braden Stringer is also gone off this team. Defensively, you lose your best defensive back, in my opinion, and Zion Childress, 74 tackles. Childress. Again, I apologize for mispronunciation. 74 tackles, 5 passes defended, 1 pick. Also forced 2 fumbles a season ago. Troy Leffeged and D.C. Williams are a couple defensive backs that you're going to see leaving this team in 2022 as well. Now for players that are coming in and returning. You do return a lot of your skill core players. Calvin Hill and Jamal Jeter come back at the running back position. Your 1-2 punches back. Hill had 714 yards, 3 touchdowns, while Jeter 384 yards and 8 touchdowns a season ago. In the wide receiver position, hey man, you return quite a bit. Javen Banks, Marcel Barbie, Ashton Hawkins, Drew Jackson are guys coming back for this team. And then DeMarcus Gregory is a wide receiver transfer over from South Florida that is coming in. But the name on offense I'm really intrigued by is the quarterback, Lane Hatcher. A guy that never really found his real consistent groove at Arkansas State, and maybe a change of scenery is what he needs coming into this Texas State program with something to prove, maybe a little chip on his shoulder. It was a guy that at one point was recruited by Nick Saban to go play for Alabama. Of course, didn't turn out that way. Lane Hatcher went to Arkansas State and now is here with the Bobcats. And he's going to be having a solidly experienced skill core around him there as well. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, Nico Ezador and Jordan Revels come back on the defensive line, although Revels can play linebacker there as well. And Revels, probably that best defensive player. 59 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 passes defended, did force and recover a fumble a season ago as well. And you get him back as well as a couple transfers on the defensive line. The biggest one, in my opinion, is Nelson Mbanassor. Linebackers Isaiah Nixon, Sion Tupou, and then the transfer in CJ Williams coming back and coming in for this team. To Jordan Mask, Cordell Rogers come back for this team, and then Pierre Kameni coming in from the transfer portal in the defensive back position. Let's take a look at this Texas State schedule, and there are a lot of games that jump out at you. Hold on. Going back to the talent real quick for this Texas State team. If Lane Hatcher can come and put together a solid season at the quarterback position, the defense can improve for the transfers they have and what they have coming back. This can be a really solid team for Texas State in 2022. Now looking at their schedule, the game that jumps out at you most notably is that Baylor game, of course. But other games in non-conference, you got to go on the road to play Nevada. Florida International comes to town, as well as Houston Baptist. Baylor, a team that won the Big 12 a season ago, and they could do it again in 2022. A team that I still feel is being underrated coming into this season. When you look at Nevada there as well, that is a Nevada team that, yes, is losing Carson Strong, is losing Romeo Dubs, is losing Cole Turner, is losing all of those guys. Yet, I still like how this Nevada team is put together. Also have to replace their head coach in Jay Norvell. Going to be a hard game for Texas State to win on the road. When you look in conference play, James Madison on the road, a newcomer to the Sun Belt. Other road games against Troy, ULM, Louisiana Monroe, and then South Alabama. And then games at home against App State, Southern Miss, another newcomer, Arkansas State, and Louisiana. So let's go ahead and dive on in to this schedule here. Again, Baylor, I still feel like this team is being underrated coming into 2022. I think Baylor is a team that, while they do lose a lot, especially out of their defensive back position, it's a Baylor team that I still really like and I think can go and compete in the Big 12 Conference yet again and can walk away with another Big 12 title in 2022. On the road against Nevada, you guys already heard me say how much they lose off last year's team, including that head coach in Jay Norvell, who I believe went over to Colorado State. But this is a Nevada team that I still do like. I think is still put together fairly well. And a Nevada team that I feel like can be a solid team in the Mountain West Conference this year. And that's going to be a hard road game for the Bobcats of Texas State. When you look in conference play, there's no Coastal Carolina, but you do have to play Louisiana. You do have to play App State, 2 teams that can play in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. But you do get both of them at home. So helps out a little bit there, but still going to be 2 hard games to win. Some other hard games to win I feel like will be James Madison on the road. Usually a really solid team at the FCS level. Now, of course, coming over to the FBS level, playing in the Sun Belt Conference this year. I do like what James Madison has on this team. I like the coaching staff. I like everything about James Madison. They can give anyone they play a fight this year. Same thing with Troy. I like what Troy has this year. A team that's being overlooked a little bit in the Sun Belt Conference. I like what Troy has coming back in 2022. But now looking at some games that I feel like could be winnable for Texas State. ULM definitely could be a winnable game. A team that won 4 games last year. Now I don't know how you look. They were some of the worst statistics in the Sun Belt Conference, yet won 4 games last year and can still be a fairly dangerous team if things get put together the right way for the University of Louisiana at Monroe. Same thing with South Alabama. They lose Jalen Tolbert, but still can be a solid team. Southern Miss, same thing. They can push for a spot in a bowl game there as well. And Arkansas State brings Butch Jones in to be that head coach, and they expect some improvement even with Lane Hatcher transferring out of that program. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game's in orange, I still don't see you winning, but it is college football and upsets can happen. Yellow, your 50-50 high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that, well, you should win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. And then games in green, I have you winning. So taking a look at some non-conference games here, I just don't see you beating Baylor. That's a very, very hard game in my opinion. Again, I still think Baylor's going to be a solid team this year in 2022. So definitely is a game right there with Baylor that Texas State can't take lightly. And I don't think Texas State is going to have that much success when they go play in Waco this upcoming year. Nevada, same thing. I know with all they're losing their best, they're losing their starting quarterback, best wide receiver, a star tight end. Yes, I realize that. I still feel like Nevada's going to be a solid team, and that's going to be a hard road game there for Texas State to go on and win. Taking a look at their, and then beating FIU, I don't think is going to be that much of a challenge. Same thing with Houston Baptist. So realistically looking, Texas State should be able to start off the year 2-0, and then you got to find 2 wins in Sun Belt play, which is not the easiest thing in the world. On the road against James Madison, it's a James Madison team that I like coming into this year. I think can push for a spot in a bowl game in their first ever season at the FBS level. And this is a James Madison team that also is only playing 11 games this year. It's a game that, again, Texas State going on the road, you could put that game in yellow. A lot of unknowns about how James Madison is going to handle the FBS level and things like that. But for Texas State going on the road, that's a hard game to win. Same thing going on the road to beat Troy. I don't necessarily see them going on the road beating Troy. I like what Troy has coming back, and that can be a sneaky team that can push for a spot in a Sun Belt championship game. App State, Louisiana, those are probably two of, if not the 2 best teams in the Sun Belt this year. You can absolutely play in the conference championship game, and those are 2 teams right there that I don't see Texas State getting by. However, like I said, winnable games. There's a 4-game stretch right there that if Texas State can split those games, or maybe if they can win all 4 of them, this is the Texas State team that definitely can build some momentum late in the year. Would not be surprised if they come in to that Southern Miss game 2-5, needing some wins to get into bowl game season. And again, all those games right there, very winnable games as they are all highlighted in yellow. I think the most winnable game out of the bunch at home against Arkansas State. I think that's the most winnable game. Going on the road against ULM there as well. If that team builds momentum, they can be sneaky. South Alabama, that can be a sneaky team. Southern Miss, that's a tricky one. So there are tricky games on this Texas State schedule, but there are a lot of winnable games on the schedule. But I don't see much improvement for this Texas State team, even with the addition of Lane Hatcher. However, saying that, I do see this team pushing for a spot in a bowl game. I think a bowl game is much within the realm of possibility for this team. And when you take a look at things throughout this team, there is a lot of skill on the offensive end. Lane Hatcher at quarterback, lots of talent on defense. I do not see much improvement from this Texas State team. However, if there were to be some improvement, I think 5-7, 6-6 can be there on the table for Texas State. But I'm going to go with 4-8 for the Bobcats in 2022. And that's going to do it for my video on the Bobcats. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Anything like that to help support the channel means a lot to me. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.